Jim Harbaugh announced on Monday that star Justin Herbert will not be playing in Week 18, and it is absolutely the right decision.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making us your first listen today. To make sure that you never miss a show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, as you mentioned, Justin Herbert will not be suiting up in Week 18 against the Broncos, and it is absolutely the right decision without a doubt. You got to keep him as healthy as possible for when it's one and done. But we know he's not going to play, but which starters will play? That's something that's going to be an interesting topic. One group of people I definitely want to see are the rookies, and I feel like all of the rookies, for the most part, given health, should be out there on Sunday.
Yeah, I think for the most part they should be, but man, I mean, Omarion Hampton might be a tough one for me to get behind playing, knowing how important he could be to this playoff run and an already injured reserve stint on his resume so far. But it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Chargers storylines and overreactions, and the biggest storyline today is Jim Harbaugh announcing officially that Justin Herbert will not be playing in the game on Sunday. He has not talked about really any other specific players, basically just said anyone who's banged up, which is, I think, a little bit of BS. It's just going to be probably most of the starters that aren't going to be playing. But this is a good buy or sell here that we can start with from Charger Power, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers should rest key players on Sunday to give them the best chance at winning a playoff game the following week. And I've seen a lot of differing opinions on this, on whether the Chargers should be trying to win this week and help their positioning in the playoffs. But to me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's something we talked about after the show and the live show that we did Sunday night. If you have a chance for Justin Herbert to get hurt, and you're not going to miss the playoffs by not putting him out there, and you're not going to play, win your division by winning the game, you don't play him. I think this is absolutely the right decision by the Chargers. If it's a game that's, once you start trying to lobby for seeding and stuff like that, we have seen this backfire in the Chargers' face. So to me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I am very, very glad that Jim Harbaugh has put this to bed and has said Justin Herbert will not be out there on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert broke his hand a month ago and had to have surgery, had a plate put in his left hand with screws, to stabilize it. And he's been out there getting absolutely harassed week after week after week, and he's 3-1 with that injury. But let's not kid ourselves and act like he's 100%, or he hasn't taken some ferocious hits, or he hasn't had to pick himself off the turf and see him grimace in agony. Like, he's out there doing everything he possibly can to put the Chargers in a position that they're in now, where they don't have to worry about putting him out there, where they can allow him to get the maximum amount of rest and get him as close to 100% as he possibly can get when the game is do or die.
Yeah, and the thing is like the Chargers' outcomes aren't in their own hands. There's nothing that they can officially lock up by winning this week, and there's no matchup they can guarantee themselves by winning this week. And I think if that's the case, you have to just take an opportunity that your success so far has given you, which is you can get a week of rest without having to have the bye week the week after that, right? Or not being able to get that. And I think you only have to look back to the last 2 times the Chargers have made the playoffs to kind of embolden you to thinking that you don't need to do it, because guess what? The Chargers last year fought the last week, blew out the Raiders to get the 5 seed in a matchup with the Texans, and then they got blown out by the Texans, right? In 2023 or 2022, obviously, Chargers play in Week 18. They play the Broncos. It's an inconsequential game to them making the playoffs or not. And Mike Williams literally breaks his back in that game, and you lose him for that 27-0 game against the Jaguars. Like, there's just too many. Like, if Justin Herbert gets hurt, your playoffs are over. Like, that is what is at stake. And I think when you're looking across the defensive line, that offensive line that you have is going to have to go up against, even more reasoning to not put him out there if you don't need him out there in Week 18. And also, the last time the Chargers had a week off right? During their bye week, they came out and won 4 games in a row after and beat the Chiefs, beat the Eagles, beat the Cowboys. So
Yeah.
I think there's way more benefit to not playing your starters this week and not worrying about the seeding than playing them. But at the same time, like, I understand what you're going for. Like, if the Chargers win this week and the Texans lose to the Colts, you could be the 5 seed, which might get you the Steelers, right? And if there's one team you want, go for the team that you've already beat, right? If like you can't ensure that it's going to be the Broncos, go for the team and the Steelers that you've already beat, and that's a good matchup for you, and you've seen it so far this year. But the thing is that's not even guaranteed, right? Like, it could be the Ravens that you're playing. Like, you just don't know. And I think that there are reasons to do it, and I just don't think that outweighs like the potential cost that having and playing your starters in this game could bring.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really that can help you like an 100% guaranteed situation. Like, the only thing that you can guarantee is that you're going to get your most important players off of the football field, off of their feet, away from getting tackled and having to go out there and impose their will and tackle other people. And you take that risk away. Like, that's what you do. And like, who cares? Like, this game doesn't matter if the Chargers win it or lose it. They're going to be playing the week after. That's already been decided. So if you can get Khalil Mack, who is at the, in the twilight of his career, off his feet, to get him ready to go, to get Derwin James off his feet, get Deion Henley off their feet, Keenan Allen, the pro who's been out there doing his thing all year long, get all these guys off of the football field. This is only going to benefit you. It's only, and hey, one more week, hopefully, to get Jamari Sawyer back on the lineup too. I mean, that would be massive. All of the rest they can get for any of these guys to get close to 100%, to go out there and try and win a playoff game for Justin Herbert is obviously what you should be doing.
Well, and yeah, I mean, you talked about it before the show. The other reason you would want to win is if you win, and then also, the Texans win, like they probably will, and everything kind of goes to plan, you can actually bump the Broncos into the 3 seed and get yourself a matchup with them by going down into the 6 seed, because that is what you would have. At the same time, though, it's not guaranteed. Like, you're still needing other things to happen for you, and any of that could get messed up. Like, you could also play for it this week, and then the Texans beat the Colts, who might be starting Riley Leonard, and now all of a sudden you're the 6 seed against the Jaguars in the 3 seed. And I know that's not the matchup you want. So, like, if you can't control it and you can't guarantee an outcome, it doesn't make sense to play your starters. And guess what? You're going to have to play a good team anyways. Like, the only argument for it is, like, you played like butt last week. Like, there were so many mistakes that you made that maybe you want to clean some things up. But I thought there was a lot of encouraging things and some fluky things that went against the Chargers too. But a lot could happen. Like, the Bills could decide to sit their starters next week, right? And their starters, their backup still might beat the Jets because the Jets are that bad. But, like, there's a lot that can happen, and it's out of your control. Do what you can control and try to keep your best players healthy. But let's get to one more here from Action Dan, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers would rather play the Patriots in New England than the Jaguars in Jacksonville. I'm buying it because the revenge games have not gone well for us this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it as well. I just feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars just are not a team that lines up very well with what the Chargers do.
Matchup.
It's just a bad matchup for them. And I think you look at it with the New England Patriots, it's a better matchup. They don't have quite the pass rushers. They have the same amount of sacks, but as far as like the defense, I think that's an offense with the Chargers that can get some things done against them. And I feel like they have the type of defense to be able to put a roof over the coverage and try to be able to limit Stephon Diggs and try to confuse Drake May. I mean, he's had a fantastic year, but the Chargers' strength is their pass defense. Without a doubt. Coupled with that pass rush, if they can be able to ignite that and combine that against Drake May, I like that matchup a whole lot better than the balance that the Jacksonville Jaguars have been able to bring to the last 6 games that they've won in a row.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I just think that you're going to have to play tough teams. Like, you found that out last time. Rest your guys and give your team the best chance to go beat whatever team comes in the first week of the playoffs. No team is going to be easy. And yeah, like MVP Drake May might be the best matchup just team to team wise, because it's not an overwhelming dominant pass rush. They're the middle of the pack, but the Chargers would take that over, what they've seen, especially last week, and what they're going to see this week. So they can keep up if Justin Herbert stays upright. and they would have to probably against the Patriots, but we've also seen this Chargers defense slow down a really good offense in the Cowboys, which gives you some faith. But I think the thing becomes, where do you draw the line? And also, do all of the rookies play in this last game, even if they're starters? We're getting in all that and more today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Let's be real, no one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or the hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month, and Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every week. Knowing that you can also reach HR certified experts anytime gives you a real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months for free on your payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Dave, let's get back into our buy or sells, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And you had a good one we talked about before the show today, and it's pretty simple. Buy or sell, the Chargers rookies should all be playing in Week 18. What do you think?
I think on the surface, the quick answer in your head is absolutely all of the rookies should be playing regardless, but that's not the right answer. So I'm going to sell the fact that all of the rookies should play. I think Arande Gadsden II and also obviously Omarion Hampton, they've separated themselves as starters in this class and very, very important pieces to the offense in particular, in my opinion. I feel like with Omarion Hampton, like he right now, to me, with obviously with the uncertainty with the injury for Kaimani Vidal, you don't know what that backfield's going to look like without Omarion Hampton, and you just don't want to risk that, potential situation where he does get hurt in a meaningless game, and then you're really in shambles looking to try to figure out what to do in that situation. And Arande, he had a couple of bad drops, but by and large has had an incredible rookie season, over 600 receiving yards, out of nowhere. I mean, where people thought he wasn't going to do anything, and he had a brilliant rookie season. I think those guys in particular, for me, I think there's a good argument where they should hold them out, but everybody else I feel like should play.
Yeah, and in reality, what it is going to end up being, I can almost guarantee, is that all of them are going to dress. You're going to see maybe a limited role for Omarion Hampton, and even like in the preseason, right? There was a game in the preseason where he dressed and just didn't play at all.
This is true. Yeah,
they've kind of known what they've had in him all along, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he just doesn't get a single snap, but he'll probably dress. I'd say the same for Arande Gadsden. Bring up, you have Jared Patterson, bring up a practice squad running back. You might get Kamani Vidal back this week, so that changes, and you can have him and Jared Patterson with that work, or, Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly as your main tight ends. Like, there's a lot of different options you can use for those guys to not have them take unnecessary exposure, which for me, I'd be fine if they sat both of those guys because they're just really, really important pieces to the Chargers offense and clearly the best players at their position on this team right now. But I do think there's a little bit of an excitement to, give Kyle Kennard this entire game to play.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
I mean,
yes.
Justin Boyd, we got 26 snaps total last year. Like, Kyle Kennard should surpass that in this game, which would give him even a bigger, head start to what a pretty nice contribution type of player in Justin Boyd has been this year, right?
Yeah, he has.
I think you can do that, Keandre Lambert-Smith, let him go the whole game.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Give him some deep
No
shots.
question.
Give him some of that experience against a really good defense. Ton of Trey Harris as well, I would like to see, right? Him maybe the focal point of the offense on Sunday. So there's a lot that I would like to see. But yeah, I think for the most part, most of the rookies will play to some degree, but I'm definitely not overexposing guys like Omarion Hampton or Arande Gadsden II. They've been awesome. So let's get to this one here from Jacoby Rosenthal, who says, buy or sell, Justin Herbert's heroics will be enough to finally win a playoff game no matter who we face. David, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely not. I'm selling that. I think Justin Herbert has absolutely won the Chargers several games with his heroics. But I just feel like in the playoffs, they just get magnified. All of your issues, all of your problems, all of your weaknesses, they get exploited and exposed to the max. And so Justin Herbert has done his absolute best to be able to clean up or cover up all of the deficiencies that the Chargers offense does have. And he's done a great job of that, and it has worked. But in the playoffs, when your margin for error is so small, it's just not enough for him to have to do everything. That's why they've always wanted to build that balance and have that running game to be able to create some of that, which, sometimes they've had it this year and sometimes they haven't. And when they haven't, it's looked pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm like torn on, because like this is the thing. Like I would sell it from the standpoint of like Justin Herbert pulled out every heroic, trick that he had in his bag last week, and it still wasn't enough, right? Which just shows you that the team has to also give something as well, and they didn't get a lot out of the rest of the phases. But I would buy it from the standpoint of like I don't think there's any AFC team that they can't beat. Like the closest thing is the Jaguars, and I would not pick them to beat the Jaguars, but like. They could beat any of those teams. Every team has a flaw, right? Like Jaguars, you can probably argue are the most complete because they're offensively and defensively they've been playing really well. But when you have Justin Herbert, you always have a chance to win. Like that's just as simple as it is. Like that's why you make the playoffs no matter what, even if you don't think you're going to win once you get there. Because Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and you always have a chance to win with him. The problem is, if he's even a little bit off, sometimes it feels like you have no chance. So, like, what you want to do is not make him have to play Superman to do it, which they have done, at least with their defense, right? They gave him a defense finally, but, like, not with the offensive line. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of give and take there. I think that the point here being, like, yeah, Justin Herbert, if he goes insane, he can beat any of these teams. And everything went wrong last week, and his heroics were still almost enough to get the job done. So, I think you're right, but, like, if they want to get him his first playoff win, it's going to have to be just more than him, in hero mode, trying to save this team drive after drive, series after series, having to fight and scratch and claw just to get a first down. It's just unsustainable. But let's get to this one here from Grayson Meek, who says, buy or sell. Sometimes the Chargers need a wake-up call. These guys play out of their minds after bad losses. What do you think?
I think that is absolutely true. I think sometimes you can, get a little bit lackadaisical in your approach. Sometimes you can get a little bit, you can get a little out of focus. And sometimes, you need those type of situations where, you go into New York against a Giants team where you feel like you should absolutely beat the brakes off of them and you lose that football game. And that is a big wake-up call to not underestimate anybody or take anybody lightly. But, they've bounced back from those games, where they've lost and they've come back and beat the Steelers team. They've come back and beat a Vikings team. They beat the Dolphins, right, on the road after some tough losses. So they have been able to show some perseverance. And I do feel like it is important, but that was the last loss, I guess, the Chargers had against the Texans that I want them to learn from, because going forward, this Broncos game, whatever, that doesn't really matter in my opinion, but you got to learn these lessons and implement them quickly, because the next game that matters, it's all or nothing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like now you have 2 weeks to try to fix those things, right?
Yeah.
Or at least like, come up with a better game plan for it. But like, I would sell the fact that, like, the thought that it's a good loss, just from the standpoint of if the Chargers win, they have a chance to win the AFC West. And that should always be your goal. Getting a home game, which is what Justin Herbert has never had in the playoffs, should be your main goal. And also, like, the Chargers are 2-1 after their losses. One was a 2-point win over the Dolphins. The other one was a 17-point win over the Raiders after a bye week, right? So it's not as if every week they've lost, they've come back and just smoked the next team that they played. But I do think that they have learned from those losses, and I do think that this was a good wake-up call, right? Like, after winning 4 straight, you feel like you're on top of the world, and you see just how good you have to be to beat the teams that you're going to have to beat. And I said it in the post-game show, and I'll say it again today. Like, that felt like a playoff game.
It
and
did.
For the Chargers to have that experience and to be humbled in that loss, but still not have, the dire side effect of being bounced from the playoffs and having your season be over, I think is a super, super valuable commodity that they have there. And I don't think they need to do it again this week against the Broncos. Because the thing is like, they might not beat the Broncos. Like, that's the part that nobody wants to think about. And the thing, like, if you're going into the playoffs after just getting beat up physically by the two best defenses in the league in back-to-back weeks, potentially, with the Broncos and the Texans. Like, what shape is your team going to be in once you get to that first playoff matchup? So that's all my thought process on it. But I do think, yeah, that could be a wake-up call that this team needs to kind of sharpen up, as they have 2 weeks now to prepare potentially for their first playoff game. But we still have more to get into, including if it will be Greg Roman that ends up being the Chargers' demise in the playoffs, and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, try something new. It can feel like a challenge, but with Prize Picks, it's always feeling good to be right. And with high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on Prize Picks is super simple and quick. The app is really easy to navigate, and it's just made watching games more exciting, especially when you're following individual player performances. And it'll be really interesting to see what the Chargers' projections are this week, and if we get a more than or less than on a Trey Lance passing yards potentially, or what that looks like. But the good news is you could go with basketball and dip your toe in that water with the new stacks. You can go with Luka Doncic to go for more than or less than 33.5 points, and you can stack that with Doncic having more than or less than 5.5 rebounds. You hit on both of those, you win. All you have to do, download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. David, we still have more buy or sells to get into, and thank you to all of the everydayers out there for making us your first listen as always and contributing on today's show. And we'll have a Chargers mailbag to go along with a couple other topics that we want to get into tomorrow, including kind of the mysterious case of Ladd McConkey and him having a little bit of a sophomore slump. But I do want to get to this one, which I think is very present on most Chargers fans' minds right now, and a frustration that's been boiling now for a couple of seasons. And this is from Chris Saiz, who says, buy or sell, no matter how far we make it in the playoffs, at some point the demise of this team will be because of offensive play calling and game planning, so we should be prepared for it. David, what do you think?
I feel like it's going to be a part of it for sure. So I'll buy that it's a factor because to me, knowing the issues that we know that the Chargers have with the offensive line, I feel like play calling has definitely let Justin Herbert down. The fact that they haven't been able to consistently get the ball out of his hands and in the hands of playmakers more effectively, and also been able to mix up the running game to have more early down running success rate, which has been a mixed bag for them. You know, when they've had success running on first down, they've been able to keep the chains moving. They've been able to sustain drives and ultimately score points. When they haven't been able to do that, and they're running the ball and running against a wall, they're having a lot harder of a time finding success on offense. So really hunting that balance has been very, very important. But to me, the biggest issue that is going to be the demise of the Chargers season ultimately probably is going to be the same thing that damned them last year, which is the interior of the offensive line. And not even just the interior, the entire offensive line. It's everybody. Now that you obviously both tackles have been out, you have backups that are there, you have guys on the interior that, if you're not named Zion Johnson, it hasn't been a pretty sight for them. So I think ultimately it's the offensive line. It always has been, and I think unfortunately it probably always will be.
Well, hopefully not, but I think for this season, it's hard to imagine anything else. But yeah, I think we're on the same page. I'm selling it because I think overall it's just going to be the offensive line that ends up being this team's demise. But to the point that you're making there, Chris, like I think the other part of it is just the inability for Greg Roman to work with the offensive line that he has right now. And all we hear about is how handcuffed he is and how much of the playbook he's not allowed to use because he doesn't have the offensive line. But at the same time, like we're still seeing them run these, 5-7 step drops. We're still seeing the issues with the spacing. We're seeing the running game, which, can still evaporate at any time with no warning. And I think that there's just a general lack of creativity. Like, look around the league. Like, the thing is like, when Greg Roman's talking sometimes, I'm like, brother, like, I hear what you're saying, but I watch football, man. Yeah. Like, I see what it looks like for a lot of these young quarterbacks. Like, look at who is doing so well this year. I mean, you're talking
Caleb
about
Williams,
the
right?
Sean McVays, the Ben Johnsons of the world with the Bears. The, Kyle Shanahan as well. And then you have, on this side, you have the Sean Paytons. You have
Right.
Liam Cohen, who's an offensive mind, taking
Yeah.
them to new heights, right? Josh
Yeah.
McDaniel is back as an offensive coordinator, great again in New England with Mike Vrabel, who's a defensive guy, but more of like a Jim Harbaugh type. But at least they're running kind of creative offenses. Like the Chargers just don't have it. It's just not there. It just looks different. And
Yeah.
I know those teams have struggled and have had their own offensive line injuries, and it takes an effect. At the end of the day, I don't know anyone that thinks the Chargers are running a complex or, a difficult offense for the other team to understand. And they're just not catching teams off guard, which is why you've had a slow start against the Chiefs, which is why you had a slow start against the Eagles, had a slow start, a terrible start against the Texans in this last game. And the only time you did well was you were going up against the Cowboys, who were a historically bad defense, right? Like in the last month, that's the only time you've really started fast offensively. So it has to be a lot better. And it is concerning when you see kind of the creativity and the shootouts these other teams are getting in with, more creative offensive minds. So from that standpoint, I totally understand what you're saying. Let's get to this one here from Tom on Twitter, who says, buy or sell, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman find a combination of the offensive line they actually plan on sticking with in the playoffs instead of continuing the game of musical chairs. You buying or selling that?
I feel like they've had to do it out of necessity, so I'm going to sell it. I just feel like they've had to, continuously, shuffle things around because they're trying to find that right combination. And without, the guy they want to have at left tackle, obviously with Jamaree Salyer dealing with a hamstring injury, hopefully they get some good news on that and they get him back. But the interior, I mean, like I said before, Zion's played good football, but Mekhi Becton's been bad. I mean, it's just been really, really bad. I mean, we already know what Bradley Bozeman is. I feel like that's beating a dead horse. I don't really need to spend too much time on that. But if you're watching the tape, watching the film on Becton, he's missing a lot of blocks in the running game. And, that's unacceptable. Like, if you're not going to be able to open up holes at your size and you're just completely whiffing on blocks in the pass protection game, they have to try something else. They have to try to figure out, what they can do to improve upon that. They have some potential options, but I feel like it's just a situation where they've had to shuffle guys because of injury and just bad play.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because, so much of it has been out of necessity. Like, we have seen guys get benched, right? And we have seen them try different options, whether it's Austin Deculus or, putting Trevor Penning out there at left tackle the first week he's in the building, the first few days he's in the building. But most of it has been out of necessity. I mean, this is from Daniel Popper in that last game. This would be the Chargers' 23rd different five-man offensive line combination since they had Bobby Hart at left tackle, and their 10th different starting five in 16 games. That's just insane. It's historically bad. That's the thing with Greg Roman is obviously he has those two huge excuses. The offense would probably look much better if you had your two tackles.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Obviously. And so you can't put it all on him, but I think the combination that they want is Jamaree Salyer, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton, and Trey Pipkins in that order from left tackle to right tackle.
Yeah.
I think it's much more, like I said, about just game planning around what you have. And the shuffling due to injuries is it's really tough. That's part of their struggles for sure. But at the same time, it's just that there's no offensive line combination at this point that's going to save him. As simple as that, right? That's just, it is what it is. You got to get the best one out there, but even the best one you have isn't good enough to compete with the best defensive lines or pass rushers that you're going to go up against. And you're going to have to plan as if that's the case, because it is going to be the case. So know that going into it, Greg. All right, let's get to one more, because maybe that shouldn't be the ideal starting five, because Shaggy says, buy or sell, Mekhi Becton loses his spot to Trevor Penning. Interesting here, David. I mean, obviously the Chargers traded that 6th round pick for Trevor Penning out of desperation near the deadline. Do you think there's any chance we see him take over for Mekhi Becton, who has been really struggling?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'd love to see it and inject at least, somebody who has a strength in run blocking, who has a nastiness in the way he finishes, I'd love to see it, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So I'm going to sell it. I love the fact that they get him on the field as that 6th offensive lineman, and you see it. You see the reason why. He does have that mentality, and he has improved, the way that the Chargers have been able to run the ball when they've been able to implement that, in a successful way. So, yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so either, but this is what I will say. Start Trevor Penning at right guard this week.
Oh yeah.
Give him the entire game, right? Like
Yep.
that's what I would say. Like, just let's see what it looks like, right? Because that's the thing. Like, Mekhi Becton's always been a little, up and down in pass protection. He even was last year on the championship Eagles team.
Yeah.
The biggest downfall has been that he's been so bad as a run blocker. And like, that is just the part that's been so tough to swallow, because you thought that the floor for him would be so much higher because he was a really good run blocker last year. But like, out of 61 guards with at least 200 run blocking snaps this year, he ranks last.
Yeah.
He's ranked as and like, PFF grades are subjective. The problem is that it fits what you're seeing.
Yeah,
Right?
the
Like,
film.
It's
Yeah,
just like
bad.
that. It's just not good. Like, it's just bad. So like, I would love to see Trevor Penning. I mean, in my opinion, I think that the offensive line should be at left tackle, Austin Deculus, at left guard, Branson Taylor, bring him up from the practice squad, center, Andre James,
Oh, yeah.
right guard, Trevor Penning, right tackle, Bobby Hart. That's what I think it should look like this week. And it's
I'm with it.
feasible. And you might have to have those other guys in and dressed for backups, but like, Mekhi Becton has the third most pressures allowed. Not just talking about him being the lowest graded run blocker in the league, and it just feels like his heart's not in it. I'll just say it like that's just what it feels like. It's hard. You can never truly gauge a player's motivation, but like with the comments that he's had out there, like it's just like he's playing uninspired football, in my opinion. But he's allowed the third most pressures of any guard in the NFL, and he's played less than most of them. Like,
Yeah.
he's played. The other top 20 guards in pressures allowed have all played more snaps, and for the most part, significantly more snaps than Mekhi Becton has. And he's third in the most pressures allowed in 14 games.
Yeah.
When you're the worst run blocker in your league at your position per PFF, I can't say he's the worst, I just know it's bad. And you're also giving up the third most pressures in the league. Like, there's just really nothing to redeem it. So put Trevor Penning out there for a full game. If he shows up against that defensive line, I think I'm 100% considering starting him at right guard in that playoff game. But I want to see it
Definitely.
this week. I don't want to see him playing tackle. I don't care what you think he can be. Put him at the biggest kind of bad spot in your interior right now, and that's at right guard, and see what he can do with a full game there, right? Surrounded by other backups, it's not going to be an easy spot, but see what he does. Sink or swim. Like, that's to me what it is. But I want to see it out there because I'm tired of seeing what we have been seeing. So that's going to wrap things up for today's show. If your question, or your buy or sell, I should say, didn't get on today's show, the good news is you can get back onto tomorrow's show, where we have some big topics like Lad McConkey's regression to talk about, but we'll also do a Chargers mailbag so you guys can get your questions on the show. And hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter, at LockedOnChargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Also, make sure you never miss the show by subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcasts from, so you never miss the show. Get those notifications on, or you can call in to the voicemail line if you want to be part of tomorrow's show at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers question there. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow when we talk about Lad's potential sophomore slump. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.